The crowd screamed with hate. Liari's hands were tied behind her back. Her silver skin was bruised. Her feet dragged along the ground as the guards pulled her through the city square. People from all corners of the Tyrari capital had come to watch the punishment. She betrayed our blood. Someone shouted, "Loved a human like a beast." Yelled another. The guards stopped in front of a tall metal pole standing in the center of the square. It was called the Pole of Shame. Only traitors were tied to it, those who broke the ancient laws. Lyri's eyes scanned the crowd. She didn't care about the insults. She didn't care about the pain. She was only looking for him. "Ethan?" She whispered under her breath. Her heart ached, not because of the fear or the punishment, but because she didn't know if he was safe. She had told him to run. She had begged him to leave before they found out about them. But deep inside, a small part of her still hoped. One of the guards pulled her hair. "Face the people, traitor." Another guard kicked her legs, making her fall to her knees. "You will be tied here until the sun leaves the sky," the commander said loudly. "Let her be a lesson. No Tyrari will ever love a human again." The guards tied her tightly to the pole. Her arms were pulled above her head. She couldn't move. The crowd threw dust, food, even stones. A rotten fruit hit her face, but she stayed silent. She wouldn't cry in front of them that far away. Near the edge of the market, a man stood in the shadows. He wore a dark cloak and kept his head low. His heart pounded in his chest as he watched the scene. It was him, Ethan. His fists were clenched. His jaw was tight. He had never felt so helpless. They had taken her from their small camp 2 nights ago. Soldiers found them asleep in a hidden cave. She had begged them not to hurt him, and he had begged them to take him instead, but they only laughed. "A human can't break our laws," the soldier had said. But she did. Ethan wanted to run out, to stop them, to pull her down from that cruel pole. But there were too many guards. Too many eyes. He couldn't fight them all. Not yet Dotso. He watched Dot, and he remembered Dot. It was just 3 months ago when he met her. He had been a medic in a human relief team. A peace agreement had just ended the long war. Ethan stayed behind to help with injured Tyrari civilians. Most of them hated humans, but Liari was different. She was a translator, smart and quiet. She always watched him from a distance. One day, she brought him food. Another day, she helped him clean a wound. Slowly, they began to speak, laugh, share stories. Then one night, under the glow of twin moons, she kissed him. They knew it was dangerous. But they didn't care. Love had grown where hate was expected. Now, because of that love, she was tied up like a criminal. Ethan took a deep breath. He couldn't let this happen. He had no army, no backup, but he had his mind, and he had a promise. "Won't let you die," he whispered. Just then, a guard noticed him. "Hey, you there, show your face." Ethan turned and disappeared into the alleyway. He ran through the narrow streets until he reached a quiet corner of the lower city. There, he hid behind a wall, heart still racing. He knew what he had to do. He would get her out. Back at the pole, Liari closed her eyes. She was tired. The ropes were cutting into her wrists. Her legs were numb. The crowd was starting to leave, now that the show was over. But something in her chest still burned. She thought of Ethan, his smile, his kindness, the way he looked at her like she wasn't a monster. "I don't regret it," she whispered. Not even for a second. She didn't know if he was near. She didn't know if he was safe, but she believed one thing deeply in her soul. He hadn't forgotten her. Asterisk. The rain on Tyrari Prime was not made of water. It was thin, green, and it sizzled quietly as it touched stone and skin. Acid rain. Light. Enough to sting, Not to burn, but still enough to keep most people inside. Except one man. Ethan stood under the rusted awning of a half-broken vendor stall, hidden in shadow, his eyes never leaving the square. There she was, still tied to the pole of shame. Her head hung low now. The crowd was gone. Only 2 guards remained, one on each side, talking quietly, bored. They didn't expect trouble. That was their mistake. Ethan's cloak was soaked through. His shoulders were shaking, not from the cold, but from fury. It twisted inside him like a living thing. He had trained as a field medic, not a soldier, but the war had taught him how to survive. He would use that training tonight. Earlier that day, he had visited the broken part of the city where humans and low-caste aliens lived. He found an old market seller named Brooke, who still owed him a favor. "I need one thing," Ethan had whispered, sliding 2 metal chips into Brooke's hand. "Just deliver this tonight. No questions." Inside the warm loaf of meal bread was a thin, sharp blade carved from old ship alloy. Hard to detect. Hard enough to cut ropes. Brooke had nodded once. "She still mean that much to you?" Ethan's reply had been simple. "She's the only thing that ever did." Now, as the green rain fell, he watched Brooke's small hovercart approach the square. One of the guards raised a hand lazily. "Deliveries after curfew?" Brooke shrugged. "For the prisoner. Fresh food." "Commander's order." The guard scoffed. "She's not going to eat it, old man. She be dead by morning." Brooke didn't answer. He just placed the warm bundle at the base of the pole and walked away, slow and steady. Ethan's heart pounded. Please. Please let her find it. Tied above the pole, Liari opened her eyes at the smell of warm bread. Her arms screamed in pain as she tried to move. She could barely lift her head. But then she saw the bundle. She didn't know who sent it, but she knew who could have. With all her remaining strength, she let herself slide just enough to press her foot against the wrapped bread. She dragged it closer, carefully, quietly. The guards weren't looking. Inside, she felt something hard. Her fingers trembled as she reached the blade. It was small, just sharp enough. Tears filled her eyes, not from pain this time, but from hope. He hadn't left her. In the shadows. Ethan watched her tuck the blade into her sleeve. A whisper of a smile touched his lips, but it disappeared quickly. This was only the first step. Now came the hard part, getting her out. He turned away from the square and moved quickly through the back alleys of the lower district. There was a tunnel system under the temple ruins, old, half forgotten. It had once been used to smuggle tech. He would use it again tonight. As he moved, he whispered one promise over and over like a prayer. "Just hold on, Liari. I'm coming. Asterisk thee." Wind howled like a warning. Up on the pole of shame, Liari's fingers moved slowly, carefully under the rope. Every twitch of her hand sent fire through her muscles. Her arms were numb, her wrists cut and raw. But she felt it, the blade, tucked inside her sleeve, flat and cold against her skin, sharp enough to slice air. She gritted her teeth and began, one movement at a time. If the guard saw her hands shake, she'd die before the rope even came loose. Down. In the maze-like alleys of the lower city, Ethan moved with speed and silence. He had broken into an abandoned outpost, once used by the resistance. Inside, he found what he needed: flare charges, light armor, an old cum chip still working. Everything smelled like rust and ash. But it would do. He sent a single signal through the chip, bouncing off the old human relay satellites. It wasn't a call for help. It was a message, one he'd programmed long ago. Plan Mercy. Active. And just like that, someone far away, someone who owed him a life, would come. But Ethan didn't wait for backup. He couldn't. Liari wouldn't last. Much longer dot above in the square, a drop of green rain hit Larry's eye. She didn't flinch. She couldn't afford to. She had made a tiny slice in the rope, now just enough to weaken it. If she tried to rush it, she'd only make noise. She kept thinking of his hands. Warm, gentle, the way he once brushed the dust from her cheek, like she was made of stars. A human who touched her like she mattered. Her heart squeezed. He's coming. I know it. One of the guards stretched and yawned. Still breathing? He muttered, looking toward her. Liari didn't move. He walked closer. Her. Fingers froze around the blade. She tucked it into her sleeve again, holding her breath. The guard stared at her face. Looks like she's almost done, his partner chuckled. Let her rot. No one's that stupid to come for her. The first guard spat on the ground and turned away. Liari exhaled quietly. She had seconds, maybe minutes. The ropes were weaker. Now, one good pull and her right wrist could come loose. But not yet. Not until the signal dot far below the city square. In the darkness of the tunnel, Ethan placed the last flare charge under the stone archway. He whispered, "This is for them." Then he lit it. A distant boom echoed through the city. Buildings shook. Lights flickered. The guards near the square turned in surprise. What the? Another flare went off, then another, from 3 corners of the city. Smoke rose. Chaos had begun. Back at the pole, Liari opened her eyes wide. This was it. She yanked her wrist hard. The rope tore. She cried out in pain, but didn't stop. Her arm came free, bleeding and burning. She quickly cut the other side dot. She dropped to the ground hard, knees hitting stone. But she was free. One guard turned. She's down. He rushed toward her, raising his weapon. Liari grabbed the blade and stood to face him. Just then, bang. A flash of light struck the guard's chest. He fell without a sound. Ethan stood at the edge of the square, gun in hand. I told you I'd come. The city burned in red and green. Fires rose from the rooftops, lighting up the night sky like falling stars. Sirens echoed. Guards shouted. Drones zipped across the air, scanning for rebels. But in the middle of all that chaos, too, shadows ran together. Liari's bare feet slapped against the stone road. Her breath came fast, sharp. Every step hurt. Her back still bled where the ropes had rubbed her raw. But she didn't stop. Ethan was beside her. He didn't speak. He only held her hand, and that was enough. Minutes earlier, she had collapsed. At the pole, weak and shaking. The guard had almost caught her. Then came Ethan's shot clean, silent, fast. The man dropped. Liari looked up and saw him standing there. For a moment, time stopped. His eyes met hers, and in them, she didn't see fear or anger. She saw fire and love. He helped her up. No time to talk, he said. Can you run? She nodded. Only if you do. Now they darted through the ruins of the temple district. Old carvings of forgotten gods stared down at them. Smoke curled through broken windows. Somewhere nearby, a bell rang in mourning. They'll close the gates. Ethan shouted. We need to get underground. I know a way, Liari said, pulling his arm. She led him behind a stone wall, where a narrow stairwell dropped into darkness. The old tunnels as they descended. Voices passed overhead. Guards searching. Split up, one of them yelled. They couldn't have gone far. Down in the dark, Liari coughed from the dust. Her legs gave out. She sank to the floor. I can't. Ethan knelt beside her, gently cupping her face. You can, he whispered. You already made it this far. She smiled weakly. You're bleeding. Ethan glanced at his arm. A piece of broken glass had sliced through his jacket. Blood soaked the fabric. I'll live. He tore part of his sleeve and wrapped it tight. The tunnel was old, crumbling, but it still led toward the river Dot if they made it across the water. The guards wouldn't follow. Liari looked at him in the low light. "Why did you come back?" "They tied you up for loving me," he said softly. "I couldn't let that be your end." "But you risked everything." "So did you." They reached the tunnel's end. Above them, a metal grate blocked the exit. Ethan pushed it once, twice, then slammed it with his full weight. It creaked, then cracked, then flew open. Fresh night air rushed in. Liari crawled up after him, blinking at the bright moons overhead. Freedom. Almost. A warning siren echoed nearby. They weren't safe yet. Just then, a spotlight hit them. A drone. "Run!" Ethan shouted. They sprinted down the riverbank. Blaster fire hit the ground behind them. Rocks exploded. Trees burned. A small ship sat waiting on the far side of the river. Ethan's backup had come through, but between them and that ship stood a dozen armed guards. Too many to fight. Liari turned to him. "Go. Take the ship. I'm not leaving without you. Then we fight." He looked at her, proud and afraid all at once. "Together?" "Together." Asterisk. The first shot missed by inches. The second grazed Ethan's shoulder. He stumbled, teeth clenched, and pulled Liari behind a broken wall along the riverbank. Dirt flew into the air as the guards fired again. Bright red beams lit the night like lightning. Liari pressed her hand to his arm. Blood seeped through his jacket. "You're hurt." "I noticed," Ethan grunted, forcing a shaky smile. "But we've got bigger problems." Across the river, the escape ship hung quietly, its ramp still open, its pilot unseen. But between them and that freedom stood 12 Tyrari guards in full armor. Weapons drawn. Orders clear. Shoot to kill. Liari looked down at the river. It was deep, fast, and filled with jagged rocks. Ethan followed her gaze. "We can't swim across," he said. "Not like this." "Then we don't swim." She turned her head, eyes locking with his. "We fight," he blinked. "You don't even have a weapon." "I have you," she said softly. He paused, then handed her a small stun knife from his belt. "Now you've got this too." Ethan peeked from behind the wall. 2 guards were moving closer, scanning the rocks. The others waited near the ship, forming a blockade. He turned to Liari. "I'll draw them. You circle left go for the ship." "No." "Liari, no." She touched his face. "We stay together. If we die, we die side by side." Ethan closed his eyes for a moment, then nodded. "All right. Together." The next moment exploded. Ethan leapt from cover and fired. 1 guard fell. Another ducked behind. Debris. Liari rushed forward, low to the ground, knife in hand. She moved like a shadow, fast and silent. A guard turned too late. She struck his leg, dropped him, then kicked away his weapon. Ethan's blaster hummed as he laid cover fire. A shot clipped his leg, but he kept moving. Blades, beams, blood, dust filled the air. One of the guards reached Liari and grabbed her arm. "Traitor," he growled. She twisted, stabbing the stun knife into his neck. He fell with a thud. Her body shook. She had never killed before, but she didn't stop, because this wasn't just for her. This was for the love they called forbiddance. This was for them. Ethan fell to one knee, gasping. His shoulder was bleeding badly now. His leg was barely holding. "Go!" he shouted. "You can make it." But Liari ignored him. She pulled his arm around her shoulders. "Not without you." Step by step, she dragged him toward the ship. Blaster fire struck nearby. The ramp lit up. A voice called out from inside the ship. "Come on." They reached the base of the ramp just as the last guard raised his weapon. A shot fired. Liari cried out, but it wasn't her blood this time. Ethan turned to see the guard fall struck from behind by the ship's pilot. It was an old friend from the Peace Corps. A human, face covered, rifle still warm. "You two always did cause trouble," the man muttered. Ethan laughed weakly. "Thanks for being late." Inside the ship, Liari pushed Ethan onto a bench and collapsed beside him. Both of them were shaking. Wounded, exhausted, alive. She looked at him, tears in her eyes. "I thought we'd never make it." Ethan smiled, brushing her hair back. "You didn't just survive, Liari. You fought." She looked at her hands, still stained with dust and blood. And at his still holding hers. Asterisk. The ship groaned as it lifted off the ground. Ethan leaned against the metal wall, eyes half closed. Blood soaked his sleeve. His leg wouldn't move right. His breathing was slow. Liari knelt beside him, her hand trembling as she checked the bandage. "He's fading," she whispered. The pilot, an older human named Soren, glanced back from the cockpit. "We're not safe yet. There's a blockade around the planet. One wrong move, and we're space dust." Liari looked out the small window. Tyrari patrol ships glided through the stars. Like hungry sharks. Their ship was small, old, weak. She knew what that meant. "Power core is too low," Soren said. "It can only boost one jump. 2 passengers, maybe. But not with a damaged drive." Ethan stirred, voice rough. "What are you saying?" Soren didn't answer, but Liari already understood. Only one of them could escape safely. Silence filled the ship. Ethan tried to sit up, but his body collapsed. "No, we both go." "Ethan," Liari said gently, "the ship can't handle it. You know it. Then we stay. Together." She shook her head. "If we do that, we both die." She stood and walked to the door, slowly, quietly, hands shaking. Then she turned around. "I'll go," she said softly. "You're too hurt. You can't survive the guards." "No," Ethan growled. "No, Liari, don't you dare." She smiled sadly. "You saved me. Let me return it." He tried to reach her. His hand stretched out weakly. "Don't. Leave me." She leaned in close, her forehead touching his. "I'm not leaving you. I'm protecting you. That's what love does." "No," he whispered. "Love doesn't walk away." She closed her eyes. Then, suddenly, the ship shook. Lights flickered. Sirens blared. A Tyrari patrol had locked on. Soren cursed. "They've found us. We've got 2 minutes. Decide now." Liari turned to the control panel. Her hands hovered over the escape program. But then, another hand joined hers. Ethan. He was standing. Barely. Bloody. Shaking. But standing. "We go together," he said. She looked at him in shock. "The power won't hold." I reprogrammed the escape path. Took out the backup drive. It might be enough for both of us. She stared into his eyes. "You risked everything again? For me?" He smiled faintly. "I don't care about the odds. I care about you." Soren looked back. "You're both insane." Ethan and Liari nodded together. "Then let's be insane," she said. "Together." Ethan added. He hit the launch. The ship surged forward with a roar. The stars bent around them, and the Tyrari world disappeared behind in a trail of fire and dust. Asterisk. The stars were a blur outside the window. Inside the ship, everything shook. Sparks flew from the console. One of the back engines gave out with a loud bang. Red lights flashed all around them. Soren screamed from the cockpit, "We're not going to make it." Ethan grabbed the edge of the wall, barely standing. His wounds burned. His chest felt tight. But all he saw was her Liari, holding on to the seat, eyes wide with fear. Not fear of death, fear of losing him. "We'll make it," Ethan shouted, forcing himself forward. The ship groaned louder, like it wanted to fall apart. Liari ran to his side. "If this is it," she whispered, "I'm glad I'm with you." He took her hand. "No," he said quietly. "This isn't the end. We didn't come this far to fall." Outside, the jump lane twisted open. A small, narrow tier in space, just wide enough for a clean exit. But the ship's system blinked red. Warning. Power core failing. Hull unstable. Soren looked back, panic in his voice. "You need to strap in now." Liari and Ethan collapsed. Into the side seats. She locked the belts. He was breathing hard. Too hard. She turned to him, voice shaking. "Ethan, stay awake." "I'm here," he whispered, "still with you." The jump engaged, and everything turned white. Silence. No sound. No motion. No pain. Silence. Then, a soft beep. Ethan blinked. His chest rose. Shallow but steady. He opened his eyes. Bright lights above him. A soft humming around. A scent of medicine. He was in a med bay? A human one. Someone nearby gasped. "He's awake." He turned his head, and there she was. Liari, still bandaged, still bruised, but alive. She ran to him, dropped to her knees, and held his hand against her cheek. "You made it," she whispered. "You did too," he said. "Together or not at all, remember?" She nodded, tears running down her cheeks. "You kept your promise." He smiled. "Always." Days later, they stood side by side before a council of humans and aliens. News of their escape had spread. Some still called their love a disgrace, but others, especially the younger generation, called it hope. Two enemies, the speaker said, who chose love over hate and made it out alive. In time, they would help rebuild what war had. Broken. Not as a soldier and a prisoner, not as a human and an alien, but as something new. Together. Always. The end.